Welcome back to another video. I'm doing a brand new series where we do a Southern California market deep dive across specific cities. This week we're talking about Irvine, and in my opinion prices could be trending higher here in the near future as a lot of the data is backing up that thesis. If you're new to the channel, my name's Ian Phillips. I'm a realtor in Southern California, and I also created a data platform that tracks over 190 cities in 5 counties in Southern California called the marketvector.com. There is pretty much every single housing metric you can think of here, as well as some economic data and school ratings, safety ratings, crime rates. All of this is tracked at themarketvector.com. So let's dive into Irvine. So if you go over here, you can just search for any city, any county that you want, and right away you get all of this data. Now, Irvine, California has really been in a downward trend for the last 2 years or so. If you look at the median sales price, you can see, we'll do a 3-month average here, that home values have been trending down since July 2024, where they peaked at around $1,650,000 and then went as low as $1.5 million. So around a 10% correction. But more recently, home values have actually been trending up, getting closer to that $1.6 million average. And if we remove this 3-month average, you can see we're actually pretty much about to hit where prices were in June of 2024. Sorry, they peaked at $1.7 million. So we're $70,000 off of that mark. Now, I helped several clients purchase a home in Irvine. I just so happened to live here. And I noticed last year where prices were really selling below list price and there was significantly more negotiating power happening in the market. And a lot of that data was backing that up. So when we look at the overall trend for the current and a year ago, you can see that the number of homes sold has increased by 20% in just the last year, coupled with active listings or available homes for sale down 10% year over year. So you have this environment where more homes are being purchased and inventory is declining. Now, typically that will lead to prices going higher just if you look at those two data points together. But let's look at some other metrics. So when we look at cash purchases, 26% of this market is being purchased in cash. And a big factor that I actually added to my platform last month is distressed inventory. So now I'm tracking foreclosure filings, REO inventory, which is actually number of homes that are for sale by banks. So the homeowners have officially lost their home and banks have taken control. So all of that is now being tracked on my website. Now, interestingly, when you look at demand rate, we can see that it's roughly 22%, which means 22% of all homes that hit the market are being purchased. Now, right now, even though Irvine is kind of classified as a low demand balanced market, you have 27% of all homes having a price reduction here. So right now, there's still a little bit of negotiating power happening in this market as month's supply of inventory is sitting at 4.5, which by the way, is pretty high for Southern California and specifically Orange County standards. So I think there's still some opportunity in this market as month supply is kind of sitting elevated. Basically what month supply of inventory means is if no homes hit the market, it would take 4.5 months for all homes to be purchased. Now, just for some comparison, we can look at Orange County. So Irvine is a city in Orange County and kind of get an idea of what the county average is doing. And month supply of inventory in Orange County is right now sitting at 2.5. So the supply of homes compared to the demand is substantially higher in Irvine relative to the county average. So again, you have a little more negotiating power in Irvine specifically compared to a lot of other cities in Orange County. So let's take a look at some historical information. And what I want to point your attention to is not cash purchases, but investor purchases. And you can see this has increased to 23%, down from 10% just a couple months ago. And in fact, April of last year, it was only sitting at 5.5%. So this is a substantial shift in the market where, interestingly, investor purchases have started to rise a lot as home values have started to have that bit of a trend change. If we overlay the median sales price with investor purchases, you can kind of see it starts aligning. Right around here is when the median sales price in Irvine was around $1.5 million. Investor purchases were sitting at a little under 12%. And then you started to see prices increase as investor purchases started to ramp up in the market as well. So all of this is pretty interesting data that you can look at for yourself on this platform. You can compare a ton of different metrics together, or just subscribe to me and I'm going to be doing deep dives into various markets in Southern California. By the way, comment a city or county that you want to see in the next video. But let's look at some other data here. And I think days on market is a huge component of what the trend is shifting to. And this has been trending down since the start of the year. You can see just in December, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago, it was taking 60 days for the average home to get into escrow. That is what days on market tracks. It doesn't track it to sold. It tracks it to how long this home is available for sale. And around 6 or 7 months ago, it was taking 60 days for that home, for the average home to get into escrow. Now we're sitting at 34. So days on market has almost been cut in half. And remember, when we were looking at a number of homes sold, 191 homes sold in the recent month, up from 125. And then when we look at June of last year, so this time last year, 160 homes sold. So that's where you get that almost 20% increase year over year. It is important to track what the trend has been doing month over month, and especially year over year in real estate. If we saw, for example, this time last year there was 220 homes that were being purchased for that month, that would be an important trend change, because now it would be lower. You would see inventory declining coupled with the number of homes sold also declining, which is kind of normal. Less homes available for sale typically means less homes being purchased as well. But instead, we have this little bit of a shift where you see where we saw homes sold declining and where we saw inventory declining and the number of homes sold actually increasing. Now we have seen inventory increase a little bit. Let me just remove this and we'll pull up active listings specifically. We saw the number of available homes for sale started to decline in July of last year. So there were 1,000 homes for sale, dropped all the way to 554. And now we're seeing that rise a little bit to 850. However, without fail, in the second half of the year, at least historically, we start to see inventory declining. So if we're already in an environment where prices are increasing as inventory is increasing, imagine what happens when inventory starts to decline into an environment where more buyers are in the market and prices have already been elevated for the last 6 months. That's probably going to lead to even more price increases over the coming months and over the next couple years, more than likely. Now, I've been talking about Irvine for quite a while now, and when I started to see prices declining, I thought it was warranted. I do like to do a 3-month average here, because we had this big rise in November 2022 all the way to July 2024. So we had 2 years of prices going up. And this happened in April, when we saw the Federal Reserve started raising rates in the beginning of 2022, it kind of made sense why home values would trend down. By the way, home values kind of trended down all over Southern California. And if you're interested, you can check out Los Angeles on my platform, and home values have done absolutely nothing since 2022. So there are only a handful of markets that have actually been outperforming since the Federal Reserve started raising rates. But anyway, at the beginning of 2022, we had around a 10% decline. Then we had 2 years where values started trending higher, hit a little under $1.7 million. If I remove the 3-month average, actually hit $1.7 million. So prices peaked in the middle of 2024, and then we had really about almost 2 years, a year and a half, a little over a year and a half of prices trending lower. You can see that very clearly. The trend was down, and that was when we started seeing inventory peak. So you saw prices declining, inventory also declining, and now we have started to see that trend shift where home values are going up. Now, if we just, for the sake of curiosity, go back to 2008, which this platform does provide, you can see we have gone through periods where values trend down for a while and then go through a period where they trend up. Now, obviously, this price boom was because mortgage rates were like 2% for a couple of years, which they should never have been, but that's perhaps a video for a later day. But then you had 6 months to a year where values trended down. Then you had 2 years where values trended up, 2 years where values trended down. And now we are more than likely in a period where values are trending higher. Remember, we've seen inventory declining. We've seen number of homes purchased increasing 20% year over year, and prices have just started trending a little higher. So if we get into this environment again where inventory declines into the end of the year, demand remains the same, remember, it doesn't even have to increase, then more than likely we are going to see prices increasing in Irvine as well. But that's kind of it for this video. If you're interested, subscribe for more. If you want to track these markets yourself, check out themarketvector.com. I will be doing weekly deep dives into different cities across Southern California, so stay tuned for that. I'm also a realtor here. If you're looking for an agent, reach out. I'd love to chat. I'll see you in my next video.